Okay.
So we're joined all the way from the San Joaquin Valley in Fresno, California, by my friend Rizpah Bellard, owner of Nova Farms out there on the West Coast. We thank you so much for taking some time for us. This is our first career cluster speaker of the 2026 spring semester. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Rosa Scott, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. We are in the agriculture career cluster, and we thank you so much for getting up early out there for us to talk about this incredible field that desperately needs more great skilled people in it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I did it last year. I enjoyed myself, so I'm excited to be back. Thank you.
Oh, we're glad to have you again. Now, obviously, we want to talk about all the trends in agriculture, why it's so important. But just give us a little background because you are originally from the Fresno area,
Yeah.
and you had a really cool college journey because
Yes.
we have multiple paths that these kids have told me about that they want to do for college. But you actually went all the way across the country to Ithaca, New York, to
Yes.
Cornell University, which is an Ivy League school,
Yes.
and then went back to the Rocky Mountains to the University of Denver
Yes.
and got a master's right at the beginning of the pandemic. So, just talk about your college experience and what it takes to get into those colleges like that. And then once you're there, why it's so important to get involved in things and build your network. Because I have kids all the time. I'm a proud graduate of Louisiana State down in Baton Rouge. And I always say, I didn't just go knock on the door. It
Mhm.
really does take, all these dreams are achievable, but it takes work to get there. And then once you're there, it takes even more work. So tell us about that journey because that is just so impressive to have degrees from those two great institutions.
Yes, so, for me, the I guess the acceptance to Cornell University started way before when I was like 3, 4, 5 years old. Really, my mom did a really good job at kind of getting the idea of I am an Ivy League student in my head at an early age. I was speaking Spanish by 3 years old. Nobody else in my, I'm
Wow.
Black, so nobody else in my family speaks Spanish. I was bilingual by 3 or 4 years old, put in Spanish
Wow.
immersion programs. I was reading at 3 years old. My older brother was trying to pick it up, and I just was a kind of quick learner. I skipped kindergarten, went straight to first grade. So my mom found a knack for learning in me. And that is what she just kind of pushed. By seventh grade, I was going to community college first. I was doing dual enrollment before it was a thing here in California. Um, and really to get into Cornell, it's about being one academically perform like your academic performance has to be top stellar, but also being a well-rounded student, right? I volunteered a lot in my community. I was a president of our associated student body my senior year. I was in sports, softball, basketball, golf. So I really managed my time well in high school, got a car by like my junior, senior year. So I was able to move myself more places. But I really was like a top performing student academically, but also a well-rounded student. I ended up getting a scholarship to Cornell based on my volunteering hours that I had prior to getting into college. Now, getting to Cornell, you think you're really smart when you're coming from your high school, then you get there and you're with like the smartest of the smartest people in the world. So it was a little cultural shift to be somebody who I'm competing with other students who had been competing since before they were even born, academically. So that was a bit hard, but you find your group, you find your people. So I got one of my roommates and I were really close. They ran track. I didn't run track. I didn't run track, but I was always at the track meets. I was always I was always wherever they were at with the athletes. I was hanging out. I also was hanging out with a lot of Black students. Cornell is an Ivy League. You don't think to have a large Black student population, but there was a large Black student population at Cornell, so I got really close with them. Did a lot of volunteering. I switched my major from biology to public health. After my first chemistry class, I said, chemistry is not for me. So pre-med is not for me, but that's okay. I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends that are doctors, a lot of friends that are dermatologists and dentists, and they're doing just fine. It just wasn't my calling. Um, but yeah, I graduated from Cornell in 4 years, came back to the Bay Area and was working in the anti-sex trafficking space. And it was there that I figured that my ideas and the way that I would best serve the population that was working was to be in a higher position. But I couldn't be in a higher position because I just had a 4 year degree. Granted, it was a good degree, right? It was a degree from an Ivy League institution. It just wasn't necessarily a master's degree. So I went to the University of Denver, Joseph Corbell School of International Studies, took the GRE beforehand, and I actually took the GRE twice to get really good scores. But there I was studying international human trafficking on a global level. And, it was a 2-year program, lived in Denver, loved it. And actually, it wasn't until December 2018 that I thought I want to go back into agriculture. I grew up on a ranch. And so when I was in my grad program, I figured I want to go back into ag, told my dad my business plans and my ideas. And then when I was in my grad program, I said, I also want to apply for the Fulbright program. So I applied for the Fulbright scholarship, Fulbright program through the U.S. Department of State. I got the fellowship. I got the program. It's like a very competitive program. But the pandemic happened. So I wasn't able to fulfill my program, my fellowship duties down in Cali, Colombia. But I am a Fulbright scholar, so that speaks for itself as somebody in the academic space.
Yeah.
And now I'm here in Fresno teaching ag, running cattle. I provide housing for adults experiencing homelessness. So I'm more of a social entrepreneur. But I
Yeah.
also, support other people in the agriculture space in the Central Valley.
Yeah, and that reminds me, I got to get you in contact with my friend in Dallas who also has a nonprofit in human trafficking, and I'll get you guys
Mm,
connected later. That's Niecy
okay.
Hamilton down in Texas. She's been on this platform as well. But now, now you're in the ag space, and I
Yeah.
think it's important. Ag is one of the most original forms of work in human history, but now it's always been one of the most necessary, and it's getting to be one of the most technologically advanced because
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of ag professionals. You teach kids about the ag, and yes, it's got the hard work, it's got the farm skills, it's got the animals, it's got the gardens. But there's a lot of things now that didn't exist even 10 years ago. There's
Hmm.
never been a bigger need for drone pilots in the agriculture space. There's never been a bigger need for scientists, people in the labs. There's people that work in ag that literally are in an office every day. And these
Hmm.
people are vital to make sure we have fresh food, make sure we
Hmm.
have fresh water, to make sure that we have, especially out there in the Central Valley, 90% of a lot of our crops come from that area of California. So there's always a need for people in this space. But if we have kids that say, look, I'm not going to those fancy colleges,
Hmm.
that's not something I want to do. My family can't afford it. There's all kinds of reasons, and that's fine. There are other ways to get into ag that don't necessarily require a 4-year degree. There's a lot of great associate programs and a lot of skills you can learn now to get into it. So talk about
Hmm.
some of those other areas of agriculture that kids may not be aware of that they can really find their place in.
Yeah, so I think, the way that I was taught about the ag industry, my dad studied agriculture at Fresno State here in the Central Valley. But the way that I was taught about ag and the way that I look at ag is that our goal is to feed society, right? And society is not just here in the United States of America. Society is in Brazil, it's in Nigeria, it's in Zimbabwe, it's in China, to provide food, a healthy, nutritious source of food, protein, produce, right? Food options for people all over the world, not just people in need, people who have the dollar to spend, but also people who don't have the dollar to spend. They still need a viable source of energy to keep them going for the next day. And to get into ag, you used to have to, at least in the United States of America, it used to be that your great grandfather was a rancher or farmer, and then that's been passed down through the lineages, and now you're going to be on the same 2,000 acres that they homesteaded back, in the Great Migration or something. But now I come across a lot of people who have an inner city background or who've never had like an agricultural background per se, coming from like Chicago, and they just have an interest or an inkling in soil health, or they have an interest in drones, right? Or drone operation. They're kind of everybody's segue to the ag industry looks a lot different now than it did 50 years ago. And a lot of them aren't necessarily going to agricultural institutions, although these are great schools. Like Cornell University is one of the top research institutions for the agriculture industry.
That's
But,
awesome.
not everybody goes to Cornell and studies agriculture, myself included. Um, One thing that I will say to young people, if you're interested in the ag space, or if you're interested in wanting to feed people, you got to get your hands dirty, right? And not to say that everybody who works in an office is somebody who gets their hands dirty, but I think to really understand on the base level, what does it mean to make food for somebody? What does it mean to make sure that it's clean and healthy on the other end when the consumer goes to buy it at a Walmart or at a Costco or at a Trader Joe's? Right. And so that looks like internships. It looks like, working at your local dairy, working at the poultry farm down the street. Working at the grocery store. This is where the consumer finds their food, right? This is the last stop for for food production is the grocery store or working at a restaurant. So I really think that for young people, it's important to get a job in the industry. Even myself, I just got my forklift operation license. I'm not driving a
Oh, cool.
forklift. Yeah, but I'm not driving a forklift. But if there's ever a need at a distribution site, at a warehouse or at like a food bank or something, and let's say I lose my job, or let's say my entrepreneurship opportunities don't work, I have something else to fall on. I have a skill to fall back on that I can go and get a $25 an hour job. So in the ag industry, it's really about hustling. It's especially if you don't have like a set cushion job, a 9 to 5, set with USDA, and sometimes those jobs fall through as well. But it's really about having multiple irons in the fire, right? Figuring having skills, like I call it, like building up my tool belt. I shear sheep. I know how to work cattle. I'm a great educator, so I'm great in schools. There's all these different skills that I've acquired in the past couple of years that I think that's what makes the ag industry really cool and great is that you can do multiple things, and not just be somebody who's stuck, like, doing one thing, like just being a rancher. I don't just run cattle. I raise cattle, I sell beef, I market my own beef, I talk about the different ways that beef is raised, I educate young people. So there's all these different ways to kind of, to wear many hats in one industry, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and even if you're not interested in ag, I think that can apply to
Mhm.
any industry. As kids are making decisions in high school, find ways to make yourself more marketable. The
Yes.
more things you can do, the
Yes.
more things you can put on a job application. And even if all you do is go to the community college, you could still put a lot of things and you learn a lot of skills before you ever get in the field. And I'm glad you mentioned too about people with non-ag backgrounds. And we have another guest on this platform that does bovine farming in the Texas Panhandle. And he was showing us about all the apps that he uses. There's such a need for app developers because people are paying a lot of money to make sure things are right. So they
Mm.
have apps that measure how much milk they're getting from the cows. They have people that have developed these automatic milkers, and if they break down, they need somebody skilled to fix them. So it's getting more and more mechanized. Obviously there's people there working, but it's not just like you see in the movies where somebody's down there squeezing the
Mm-mm.
others. There's so much
No.
mechanized things now that really need skilled workers.
Yeah,
And
and to add on to that, for like the dairy, industry, my dad right now, again, we're beef cattle ranchers, but because we understand agriculture, we can teach agriculture anywhere in the world. So my dad right now is in Sierra Leone helping to start up
oh
a dairy
wow.
operation, right? In Sierra Leone, because again, the continent of Africa, they have been a big importer, meaning that they buy all of the products because they don't produce anything in their own respective nations. They're making a turn away from that, right? They don't want to always have to bring in product and then export their raw goods, right? Export their raw minerals or their raw commodities. So now different nations, different areas, and again, people, you have to have money. So you can't make moves if you don't have money at a high level. So people with money are making the investment in an area in Sierra Leone to bring in the dairy operation because they now want to produce their own milk instead of always bringing in milk to their nation. But then also,
Wow.
once you're able to produce something, just like here in the United States of America, once you're able to produce and it meets the quality standards, the international quality standards, you can not only export it, but you can also just sell it in your country. So you can make money in two ways. You can make money to the community members in your own area, in your own nation, but then you can also export it to other nations that don't have that benefit, right? So my dad's in Sierra Leone helping to start up a dairy operation, and dairies, it's all about the cow. It's all about which
Wow.
breed of cow are you going to be using. And he has to think about hybrid vigor, he has to think about temperature, he has to think about, the work source, he has to think about land,
Wow.
all these things that come into play when you're starting up an agricultural opportunity in another country. But that right there is going to be all tech based because nobody's going to be just milking cows by hand in 2026, right? So bringing in the top technology that'll last for 5 years, that'll last for 10 years. And again, technology in the ag industry, it cycles out. You're going to be, once there's a new innovation, once there's a new invention, you're going to then change to that in 3 years or 4 years or something. But yeah, that's, again, he's bringing something that's done here in the United States. So it's not novel. It's not a new idea. It's done elsewhere, just replicating it in a country, in a space that doesn't have it right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned something there, and then I want to talk about entrepreneurship, but a huge trade that people might not realize is needed in the agriculture space is the HVAC because
Mm,
it's, in the meat and in the dairy industry, once that food product has been taken from the animal, it's got to be kept at certain temperatures.
Yeah.
If that food goes bad, you're talking about potentially millions of dollars. You're talking
Yeah.
about potentially tons of people getting sick. So
Yeah.
HVAC people are so needed in this field. We just think HVAC in the construction industry, and yeah,
Mhm.
we need them there too. But ag companies are always looking for great HVAC people to make sure their products are staying at the right temperature.
Yeah, and I mean, that's again, and that's in the processing stage, right? Like there's people who are working hands-on with the live animal, but then there are people who are managing the byproducts from that live animal. So in the case of dairy products or dairy cows, they're handling that milk. Like you said, they have to stay at a certain temperature. It has to be tested all the time. And you can't let anything shut down because then it's all just wasted again, because we have to have, international safety standards. And with that, E. coli or any type of like other disease could come into play when the temperature drops lower than what it needs to. Like, same thing in meat packing places. You have to have the right temperature. The freezer units have to be frozen cold in order to keep away bacteria and viruses, keep it so cold where they cannot come and latch on to the dry hanging meat. So yeah, that's HVAC is a great industry. And you can get on with one company. You can work for like a Cargill, you can work for a Western Valley Meter, you can work for a Tyson and be their HVAC person. And then as you climb up the ranks in that space, you can be the manager that oversees and brings in new people. So yeah, you can always climb up the ranks in the ag industry, similar to other industries.
Yeah, and Tyson has a huge presence here in Mississippi. We have a
Mm,
plant right up the road, about 30 minutes away. Now, they've handed me some great questions, and I want to get to those. But
okay.
one thing we got to talk about is, we have a lot of kids that say, I want to be an entrepreneur. So even if they're
Yeah.
not interested in the ag space, I think a lot of things can tie in because you can be great at a certain skill. And I always use this as an example. We have another guest of this class that's a local doctor here in Mississippi, and she was a unbelievable GI doctor, really, changing people's lives and their GI health. Knew everything there was to know about how to diagnose colon issues, but she said out of her own mouth, "I had no idea how to run a business."
Mm.
So there, it really is two separate skills because
Yeah.
you can be great at the job but not be good at running a business. So talk
Yeah.
about some of that learning curve because entrepreneurship is so glamorized on social media,
Yeah.
and I always kind of roll my eyes because I'm a huge fan of Jasmine Sullivan, but she
Um,
has the song about I'm going to move to Atlanta, open a business, and be rich. It's not a
mm,
magic trick. There
mhm.
really is so many things that go into it, and it takes initiative and it takes work ethic, and it's not just let me just start posting on TikTok and start
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah.
So even if you're not in the ag space, talk about some of those entrepreneurial learning curves that people
Yeah.
go through when they open their own business.
Yeah, well, first, to be an entrepreneur, it takes money to make money. You have to have enough money to be your first investment because if you can't find money to invest in yourself, you're not going to find money from anybody else to invest in you to scale and grow. And for me, luckily, my first investor was my father, and he continues to still invest in me when I have slips or when I'm not able to figure out the finances for that month or that season. My background, both my parents were entrepreneurs. My mom was in the real estate industry. My dad always in
Wow,
agriculture hustling.
that's
But I
awesome.
never wanted to be an entrepreneur. We grew up poor, right? So I was always like, why would I want to do something where I'm going to be poor, my kids are going to be poor? And I mean, poor relative to most, but for me, compared to other friends that I had, it was five of us living in a one bedroom house, by my high school years. Things that happened. There was a crash, 2007, 08 recession crash. We were, kind of not doing so well financially. Again, my parents didn't fully have job security. They had to hustle for the money that they made. Um, Even I remember going to college, we didn't have any money to send me to college. I had to ask family, I had to ask aunties and stuff for $150 back then to buy a flight to get to New York. I didn't have the money. So coming out of college, all my friends' parents had 401ks and retirement plans, and they were going to be consultants and investment bankers and lawyers and all these secure cushion jobs. I thought I want a cushion job because I want safety. I want financial safety, something that I did not have growing up, especially when I started to understand what does financial safety look like, what does job security look like. I figured I want that when I have kids, so they don't necessarily have to experience the things that I experienced. And it's not to say that the things I experienced were bad. I mean, I grew up on a ranch, but I wanted some more safety and I wanted some more job security. So then I went to go work in the nonprofit space, right? I went to go work for a job, 9 to 5 with benefits. And not that I hated it, but I just knew that I was the best boss for me. I knew
Very
that the
good.
ideas that I had and the way that I wanted things done, I was the best person to implement them. And honestly, I work best as one person. I can get a
Very
lot of
good.
stuff done as one person. And this mainly comes from my dad. So went to graduate school, told my dad my idea, and he said, "You just need you. You are your business. I am Nova Farming. I am Blind Essence, right?" But in that, I'm not looking to, I manage my scalability. I can scale only so much, right? I can push ideas out to other spaces, but physically I can only be in so many places at one time. So, am I necessarily going to become a multimillionaire? Nah, not really. Do I want to? Not at all. I just know that I want to be my boss in the spaces that I work in agriculture, in housing, in education, because I have the best ideas and I'm the best to implement them. Now,
That's
fast
awesome.
forward to 2021, I said, well, okay, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur like you. I want to do this. I was working as a cocktail waitress at a casino. I had $10,000 saved from tips. It was a great job, made a lot of tips, but I only had $10,000. You can't start, and $10,000 sounds like a lot to some, but to start a business, my first business was housing. I was going to provide housing for adults experiencing homelessness. 10 grand, that's rent in 2 months, right? That's rent and PG&E. That's in 2 months. And that doesn't even cover the food that I have to eat. So my dad said, okay, Rizpah, I'm going to invest in your business. And he helped me
That's
flesh
awesome.
it out as we went. But I will invest in you securing your first home and I will invest, but you have to get a job. I said, dang it. So I moved and I had to get a job in 2021. I took a while and he was like, no, 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 this was not the plan. You got to get to work. So I got a separate job. But people also don't realize as an entrepreneur, the investment, you have to have money coming through the door before your business actually starts making money. So I had a 9 to 5 and I still had some investment money in my business. But I also at the same time was pushing my business idea to my potential consumer, right? So I was telling people about my business opportunity while working a 9 to 5, while trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this business work before I actually even get tenants in my case? Um, but yeah, so the business now I'm in 4 years in 2026, so 5 years in maybe, and
Wow.
I have scaled from having 3 or 4 tenants to having the space for 15 tenants. That's a dramatic increase, and that increase happened within less than 8 months of me starting my business. But another piece of the entrepreneurial space is a mentor. You really need a mentor who has walked that path, walked that road in some capacity. You're going to have a new twist to it when you're doing it because it's a later date, you're a new person, you have new ideas, but somebody who has already walked that path so you're not making those financial mistakes that they made. And for me, in both industries that I work in, agriculture and housing, my dad has already walked the path. So all I'm making is money, right? I'm not making these mistakes. And I'm not going too far out of the ideas that he has because I mean, you can take a risk in business, but why take such a financial risk when you're smooth sailing and making the money that that needs to be made, right? So when I teach my ideas to folks or when I teach about the industries that I work in, I always let other people know you can take this risk that I just wasn't able to take, right? And that's engineering. That's the greatness of entrepreneurship. It's telling other people with their tenacity or with their ideas or with whatever they have going on, you can take this leap. I just wasn't able to here, but I also did so much more than other people in the entrepreneurial space in housing and in agriculture. And I'm only 32. My journey just started in 2021. In 3 or 4 short years, I've gotten the Got Milk poster. I've been on NPR, ABC 30, KC2. I have gotten all of these awards and accolades. But again, it wasn't just because of me. I had a strong investment and the path has already been laid for me. I'm just walking it, having a great time and just walking it. So my successes are many and my failures are few because my mentor is my own father, right? And mentorship looks different for everybody. You find a close friend, you find an older friend that's already done that work that is willing to pick up the phone at 2 in the morning when you're having an issue with whatever your business is. Like if something's going on, or, let's say you're working in a restaurant and, the water's leaking, you're like, what do I do? Who do I call? If that mentor can pick up at 2 in the morning, they're a great mentor. For me, my mentor is my dad. So he's available whenever I call. He's in Sierra Leone. I'm texting him, WhatsApping him, hey, I need this, I need help with this. Does this sheet look right? Does this look good? And he's responsive. So it's a win-win, being somebody who's a second generation rancher. I have my father directly to look up to. But also he's directly invested. I mean, because he gave me all his money to start. So, he's got to see this through. He's not getting the money back. We've already had that conversation, but he's got to see this through because he's invested in me heavily.
That's awesome. Now, I do have some great questions here, and that's a
Yeah.
great segue to this first question. This is Joshua Williamson. He's in ninth grade, one of our football players here at Belma Jackson. And he asked, with all these accolades that you've gotten, all the recognition you've gotten in national magazines, what has been the biggest sacrifice you and your family has had to make?
Oh, that's a great question. In my adulthood, since starting these companies in 2021, I honestly, I cannot say that I have made any. crazy sacrifices, right? I don't have kids. My now fiance is super supportive of the work that I do. He puts me forward, he pushes me forward and he propels me and he's a strong foundation. So anything that I do, I'm not sacrificing anything because everybody in my corner is in full support. Everybody even my closest girlfriends that I FaceTime, they're in full support of the things that I do. So I'm not missing anything. And again, I'm my own business. So I call the shots. I say when I'm going to take off or where I'm going to be. Sometimes I got to drive up 6 hours and come right back. If I'm going to go hang out with somebody or go see somebody or go say happy birthday, I'll make that trip. I'll drive 3 hours to LA like the other day. I drove 3.5 hours in LA to go to have dinner with one of my close girlfriends. Came back the next morning, 8 a.m., got up. Actually, I think I got up at 6 a.m., hopped on the road, came back to work. So, as an entrepreneur and working in many spaces, I haven't had to make any sacrifices. And I'm in a very, very blessed position that everybody around me supports me. From my family and friends, they all support me and they all know what I have going on. So anything that they have planned, they ask me my schedule first. Anything that I want to attend, I make it work. People ask me like, what do you have going on? Because my friends, they're like, hey, look, I'm Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I know where I'm at. But me, my calendar, it just varies. So I haven't had to make, and again, the investment was made in me. The business was handed to me. I have been very successful in housing and in agriculture and education. So I haven't had to make too many crazy sacrifices, and actually, in nothing that I can think of right now that stands out.
Awesome. Now, I like this question. This is Javarius Morrison. He's
Mhm.
in ninth grade. And he asked, what has been the biggest challenges working with different animals?
Oh, that's funny. Well, it's again, it's crazy because I was raised on a ranch. So right now I have a mini pig, a mini horse, some chickens, sheep, and goats. And I had the same thing as a kid. And we also have cattle. I have big cattle, but they're out in the range. We had all the same animals when I was a kid. So anything that got ill, I was the first one to tend to it. Wasn't a veterinarian, didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying my best, for bummer lambs, little baby lambs that the moms don't want. I was giving them milk in the middle of the night. But now with my own animals, I think a big challenge is to know when I want to call the vet or not. Again, we grew up not calling the vet. We just grew up
Oh,
saying, okay, we're going to try this method. If it doesn't work, it might just have to be time. But for me, it's I have the money to call the vet, so I want to call the vet. But I also am like, but this vet worthy? Can I Google something and figure it out, or can I go to my local feed store? Can I talk to a vet that I know online that's not going to charge me for a little bit of advice and tidbit information on how to best help my animal? But when I did have a pony, my mini horse, he had colic. He got compacted, or he wasn't able to poop. The fireworks from Fourth of July, this past Fourth of July, scared him so much that he was all tensed up and tight. So he was on the ground
wow.
rolling around. His stomach wasn't feeling good. So that one I had to take him to the emergency vet. That cost me $850. That hurt my heart because that was a lot of money. But then once I saw what they did, I said, "Oh no! Next time you get colic, I'm doing this at home." I was like, "Okay, watch how they intubate him." I got the Banamine for the pain,
Wow.
so I got Banamine in my truck in case something ever happens again. I got my tube to intubate. I got the mineral oil.
Wow.
So I watched so I don't have to make that financial decision again. But I did learn at the same time, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Good
And we
trial.
saw the video of you talking to Thomas the pig too. We
Oh,
all got a kick.
Thomas, that's my boy.
Yeah.
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 He growls at me. He tried to, get me the other day because his eyes were all dirty. And I said, Thomas. And so I had to, get them together. But I
Uh,
love
I like this one. This is Tanaya Willis. She's in ninth grade, and she
Thomas.
asked, if I were doing what you were doing, what would be the hardest thing for me to learn?
Time management. Time management. When you call your own shots and you do your own thing, and let's say you do pick up a 9 to 5, you do pick up a part-time job just to supplement your income, it's time management. I use my Google Calendar like crazy on my phone. I schedule everything. Whenever somebody needs me somewhere, I always check my calendar first. That's the first thing I do. Even on the phone, I say, hold on, let me check my calendar. I see what I have that day or the days around it, especially if it's going to be something that's going to be taxing on my body. I want to make sure that I'm well rested beforehand. And if I need to be well rested after, I don't have anything that it's important the next day. To be an entrepreneur and to be somebody who hustles, time management and being able, because you want to be everywhere, and this is just me personally, I'm everywhere early because when I'm there late that one time, they just know, hey, Rispa's always on time. She's early. She just got caught up with something. But I am everywhere early. I'm everywhere that I tell people I'm going to be. And for the off chance that I can't make it, I'm emailing or I'm calling and I'm apologizing for not being able to attend, or I still attend with just a shorter amount of time, because sometimes, sometimes you do overschedule. So you just say, I apologize, I didn't realize that I overscheduled, or I, messed up my schedule. I will be there, but I won't be there as long as I had originally planned. But time management is the biggest thing that I have learned.
Love it. All right, I got time for two more. I love this one, and that's a great segue to this one. This is
Okay.
Turkala Chambers. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players here. And she asks, are you a morning person by choice, or it is just something that is required to be a farmer?
No, so and it's interesting. If I was on a dairy farm, I have to be up at 4 a.m. because the cows have to start getting milked by 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, because you're milking them 2 or 3 times a day. But since my animals work a little bit different, and the spaces that I work in work a little bit different, I get up around like 7:30. It's not bad, but I'm not getting up at like the crack. Now, my dad, he gets up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, walks the dogs, goes on a walk himself, works out, blah, blah, blah. I ain't doing all that. I do need to work out. But I ain't doing all that. But me, 7:30 is not bad. And then but I'm jam-packed from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. I'm doing something. I'm checking a house, calling a tenant, checking an animal, feeding animals, cleaning pens. I'm doing something.
Wow. All right. And I love this one. This is a good last one. This is Caitlin Beal. She's in ninth grade. Um, and she asked, if you were to start all over today, is there anything that you would do differently? And is there anything that gives you hope for other women farmers, especially Black female farmers that want to get into agriculture?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I think what gives me hope is we can see what agriculture looks like via social media. So we can see other
Yeah.
Black people or other people that look like ourselves. And I mean, I'm young and I'm Black. And I think that I give people hope, like, oh, wow, like you can get into the ag industry, and then you learn about what it took to get here. But finding a segue or finding some level of relatability in the agriculture industry thanks to social media. And the first question was, if I can start over, what would I do differently?
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, I think I would have started the ag career earlier. That's all.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
now that I've fallen into it, I got into it 2021, so I was 27, 26. I probably would have started earlier. I mean, I still love the anti-sex trafficking industry, so that's like my passion space to work in. But I probably would have started early, just to be further ahead than where I'm at now, even though I'm very far, compared to other 32-year-olds in the ag industry.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for getting up early and joining us today. But a couple things before we go. First of all, agnovafarming.com is the
Yes.
website. Your Instagram page is on there. Really cool stuff you're doing. Working with all types of communities there in Fresno, so everybody can see the updates you're doing there, and we'll send everybody your Instagram page so they can follow there. But the last thing before we go is we talked about the multiple areas of agriculture that are available, the multiple colleges that people could go to, the multiple skills. So as these kids start making decisions in high school to whatever they're going to do after that, whether it's involving a college, a community college, or whatever, why should they really consider a career in agriculture with everything that's changing in the agriculture industry?
Because we're needed everywhere. Again, my dad's in Sierra Leone. He'll be heading to Ghana after. I was in China
Wow.
with him back in 2019 working on hemp production. Agriculture is needed everywhere, and there will always be an opportunity. If it's not in your home city or your home state, it's somewhere else in the world. So we have to feed people all over, and the ways to feed people, they differ. Again, grocery store versus rancher, right? So trying to find spaces, but working in the ag industry, we're needed everywhere, all over the world, all the time.
Love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us all the way from Fresno, California, owner of Nova Farming, my friend, Rizpah Bellard. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Have a good day,
I talk to
everybody.
you soon, my friend.
Okay.